Hi, George Durkee, Columbia College GIS Department, and in this lesson 3D of my exciting series, creating a web map and web app using ArcGIS Online, we're going to cover two types of web apps. One is creating a tour web app, so that's let's say a mountain biking route where you want to add photos along the way, and or a walk through a town or a nature trail or anything like that, and you want to attach photos to the route. And the second one is a crowdsourced photo map where people contribute photos to, like, say, a visit to a national park, and you want people to show their pictures when they visited the park or your town or whatever. Here's a couple of examples. Uh, First, though, I encourage everyone to go to storymaps.arcgis.com to take a look at the various example story maps that and templates that ArcGIS provides. They've got a zillion of them, and they're all really easy to put together. And once you start seeing some of the templates that are available, then you can get an idea on how to organize your information to present it such that it's attractive and easy to use. So for a tour, here's a good example here. Here's Stanford University walking tour, and it shows the route in red there, and you can either GPS that or use a use ArcGIS 10 to create the route in a shapefile, and then it's got photos along the way, and then each photo is listed in order of the walking tour down here, and you can either click on the point. So here's photo 4 uh, and the undergraduate and admission and financial aid, or you can go down here and look for something interesting and click on it and see the location of it here. And for a crowdsource map, I demoed these when I visited some of your classes when we were announcing the ArcGIS Online class. And this one, here it is here, this is one we did to crowdsource damage photos from Hurricanes Irma, Maria, and Harvey. And we set this up really quick to try and gather information from people actually out in the field or in the middle of the disaster. And the idea was to show emergency responders and FEMA, among others, where where the worst damage was, so they could allocate resources and respond to the priority areas. So for our first map, we'll set up a route, but first let's do a little housekeeping. I've mentioned this a few times, but uh, your information as you start doing a lot of these files can really get out of control. So I just wanted to quickly show a little bit of house cleaning here. This is my root folder, and I've been throwing everything into that, which is wrong. But there you go. So I'm just going to create a new folder and call it Story Maps. And then I'm going to go back to the root, and let's click a bunch of these story maps. And I'm not going to do all of them, but this is just to give you an idea. I've been fooling around with a bunch of different presentations here. And then move, and then go on down here to story maps, and voila, they all move into the story map folder you've just created. So you're cleaning up your root drive and organizing things a little better. So from there, let's go ahead and create a new clean map. And I always like to keep my table of contents open and accessible. So go to Map and right click and open in new tab. So that'll give us a new clean map to work from. And the good news is that there's one file you can just drag directly into ArcGIS Online Maps. The others you have to use the add, but GPX file, which is the standard for using a GPS to record your track, is one of the files you can just drag directly in. And I'm kind of old school, but I have recently started using my cell phone. It only took me a few years to start recording tracks. And so I've been using Backcountry Navigator, which I find imitates a GPS pretty closely and allows you to take pictures at waypoints that are geotagged, and of course also records your GPS track, and then you can upload it pretty much anywhere or email it. So it's pretty handy. And that's for Android. Unfortunately, I don't know what's good for an iPhone, but Backcountry Navigator works pretty well for my purposes. I can't remember if it's free or $2, one or the other. And it works, like I said, it works really well. You can also, not to give a long ad for Backcountry Navigator, but you can also download some of the basic maps, topo maps for instance, and store them on your phone so that you don't need a connection as long as you've downloaded the map for the area you'll be traveling in. So the first file I'm going to put in here will be the GPX file itself, and this is the one that's saved directly. And a lot of GPSs use a proprietary format that's not the GPX extension, but all of them will be able to save to GPX. And as I say, you can just drag it directly into your map, and it figures out where it is, focuses in on that area here. So what I'm going to do here is I took a little walk around the nearby abandoned golf course up in Twainhart, and we'll add photos to that and give a little point-by-point tour. Now if you use ArcGIS 10 or you have access to shapefiles, SHP extension files that are used by the whole Esri family of software, you can bring those in too. And for those, you have to zip the file. So a shapefile is built of about 4 separate files, and within ArcGIS you only see the one file represented with a name, but in fact it's made up of 4 separate files, which you'll notice in Windows Explorer showing all the individual files. And so what you have to do is highlight all of those files, because to bring it into ArcGIS, you have to send it as a zip file. So now we'll go to Add, and we'll add Layer from File, choose File, and then here's GPS zip. And getting back to file naming conventions, that's not very good. It should have a name of where it is, so I should have given it a date, a year, month, day, and where it is, Twainhart. But we're just rolling along pretty quick here, so we'll do that. And then it's import, and it generalize features kind of makes its own decisions on how it will represent the data, and then keep original features. Well, we'll show it how it generalizes here. And import layer. So it unzips the folder. And so notice the difference here between generalizing and actual. And that may be good. You may not want to show all the little squiggles and so on here. And then you can change we want it to show location only. And let's make the color a little, let's go to symbols. Let's make it a nice red here. And let's make it a little thicker, just to show, and we'll make it dotted. So those are all things you can vary, and you know, as I've mentioned before, any change you make on the web map will be reflected in your app. So you save it on the map when you make a change, you refresh your app, and it'll be reflected there. Let's call that good, and then done. So some of the things you might want to think about when you do a route is indicate that it's kind of a little walking route, so you can add dashes and dots for the symbol. And in fact, let's not use the GPS route, so we'll just uncheck it. And we'll just leave that line as is. It's not very good looking, but we'll just go with it just to speed things along here. So next, of course, you want to save. And we'll call this Golf Course Tour Web Map 1. Tags will be test, I say, and tour map. Okay, and let's just copy and paste that. And we put it in the story map folder, save map. Okay, now that's just real basic. And one other point we'll cover here for those of you who don't know much about GPS. When I imported the GPS file, what it did was it looked at a GPS records individual location points as you walk or drive along, and it does so at an interval that you define either in the GPS or on your phone. And so notice here, these little dots here is the recorded actual point where you were. So when you import it into ArcGIS Online, it converts those points into a line, connecting them together according to the timestamp. So it starts at number 1 and goes along looking at the timestamp and goes point to point. So that's just a reminder that when you record a track log, the higher the interval, between the closer the interval, say every 20 or 30 seconds in this case, then the more accurate the line as it connects together is going to be and reflects your actual route. So if I'd done this at say 2 minutes, the first point would have been point 0, and then it would have gone 2 minutes, which could be, let's say, all the way over here. So it would have drawn from that point to this point over here, which would have, of course, missed all this. So practice with your GPS if you decide to GPS your route of whatever tour you want to give. So there's no reason for us to show the individual points. Although if you're doing a, let's say, a park course or something on campus, you might want to set a waypoint, and that's a whole nother GPS data. But you might want to set a waypoint at each stop along a park course, in addition to the photo that we'll be adding, because you can add a particular symbol to the waypoints. So next, of course, you'll remember from previous videos, we go from web map to web app, and we share. It gives you a link, but we're not at that point. You want to create a web app. And then you're presented with the zillion or so choices of templates, or you can go to the web app builder. But in our case, we're going to look for a specific tour type map and see if they have a template for that. Go to tour, and as luck would have it, they do. They have 2 types, a geolist, which is in beta, which I'm not real familiar with, and then they have the story map tour, which is exactly what we want. So let's click on that. Remember that you can preview it, take a look at how it's going to present, or just go ahead and create it. And once again, you fill in, well, let's call it, we want to make sure that it's no longer a web map, but that it's a web app. And then we'll highlight that. Put the same in the summary, though in the summary you may want to add some more detail. And then done. And now you have the choice of where are your photos going to be. And so, for instance, if you have them either, if you have videos on YouTube that you want to throw in, or your photos are on Flickr or Picasa or somewhere else, you have these choices over here. Mine are just on my desktop, so you want to upload images. So I'll just choose that. And golf course, it's the layer name, and we're going to put that into Story Map, so it'll be a subfolder, and we'll create the layer in there. I'm sorry, the app in there. And so now we have what the app is going to look like. We can still make some changes with color and so on, and how it presents, but for the moment, let's just add some photos. Now I'm going to add geotagged photos, and that's, as I was talking about earlier, on a Android, for instance, you bring up your photo app, and if you swipe to the right, it'll show you a bunch of settings. And one of those settings you have to make sure is activated is that it'll record your location information. And if your GPS is not on, it'll ask you if you want to turn your GPS on. So you need both those to happen. You need your phone's GPS on, and you need to allow it to record your position. Each photo has a header known as an EXIF file, and that's just a text file that's located on your JPEG that gives additional information. So for instance, it'll give the camera type, focal length, whether you use a flash or something like that. And I'll just demo it real quick here. You right click on the photo, go to properties, and then details. And you can scroll down here, you can actually rate your photo, things like that. And so it gives you the dimensions and the DPI, the camera that was used, et cetera, et cetera. But if you keep going down here, there'll be a GPS entry, and you'll have your lat long there as well as your altitude, which may or may not be accurate, but it'll be close, and that's in meters. And if that's not there, then you haven't configured your phone correctly. So that's a good way to check if you've activated your geotagging option. Okay, so now let's get back to our app. So we've added a first photo here, and you want to type in some quick information. And incidentally, if you don't, so if you just add the point, it tells you that you need to enter this information here, and there'll be a little exclamation point on the tab. So we'll just give it a start, and then starting point for golf course tour. Spell tour right, and then add the point, and then it also gives you a location. And here you can focus in, and you can move the point back and forth. It may not be located right, or if you have an image that isn't geotagged, it'll locate that image in there, and then you can move it around until it's right. So you can put in either type of photo, geotagged, or if you just have a photo that's not geotagged, you can locate it with the location. And then you can also search. So for instance, if you haven't started on where you want to be, you type in, you can even type in a specific address, and it'll go right to that location and locate your photo there, and you can move it around to get it more exact. So we'll just add our point. And there we go, and you can change the color of the tab there. And now let's add another one. And we'll call that bridge, and bridge over ditch, not especially colorful name, and so you might obviously want something better as you're describing your features. And let's just add a couple more here. Let's go on over here. So that'll be duck pond, and then dried up duck pond. And these, of course, will all appear in the descriptives of the photo, so you want them to be better. And then a last one, I guess. Oh, and you want to save, obviously, so it tells you how many changes you've made since you've saved. So save early and often in case things crash, and that way you don't have to repeat your work. Let's add one more here. I think you're all getting the idea. Gravel road. Entrance to gravel road. Okay, not great. Let's go with it though. Okay, so let's save. And now you can go to organize. Let's say things are not in the order you want, and you can actually just drag, and notice that the number changes automatically. But since we're going in path order, we'll just go with the way we did it. And you can also change your settings, so you can put the photo on the left or on the right, and select this layout. So that's not a lot of and I guess we'll display a locate button. So if you've got your phone out in the field, you can actually automatically locate where you are by using the locate button. So let's change a color here. We'll change it to a customized one. Let's go blue. And header, the content, hard to tell, green. Oops, green I say. There we go. And we'll just go with that. Here's what you can enter in. We'll stick with the Esri logo, but you can put your own or a custom one, text and a link, and whether you want the option to share it with Facebook, Twitter, and then just straight share the URL, your data, and what you want to appear. We'll just, again, fool around with this stuff, get a feel for what does what, set your extent, and so we're just focusing in on that area, and let's just apply, and we'll go with that. We actually might have wanted a better zoom level there. Let's save, and finally let's share. And so you decide whether to share publicly or share with your organization. And probably in the edit stage, keep it within your organization. Once you share publicly, all your metadata goes into the Esri search function. And overall, when you're fooling around, let's just keep it within our organization. And it just clogs up the search on ArcGIS Online. So we'll just share for our organization. Gives you the URL to go to, and you can just go to it immediately to get an idea of what it's going to look like. And there we are. All of this is you can change. You can change the color and the title here, Golf Course Tour Web App 1. You'd probably want something a little bit better than that. And you can go back to the builder mode, your edit mode, and you click on the photos, and you just take the tour, or you click on them down here, and it shows the location of each one. So, and again, notice the the title here and the description, and you might want something a little more descriptive and better narrative style, and you get rid of that little footer there. Okay, so I had thought we'd get to the crowdsource map, but we've already been at this 25 minutes, so I will do yet one more to show you a quick review of the crowdsource map, and that'll be lesson 3D. I don't know what we're up to. Anyway, that'll be it. Thanks, and if you have any questions, send me a note.